What you are about to see is the difference between a story and the truth. We are looking at the 600 block of Harrison Street. It is 10 minutes to 3 in the morning. The neighborhood is silent. The digital sensor on this camera is capturing 30 frames per second, encoding a reality that is about to be disputed in a court of law. Watch the truck. The driver is Jose Daniel Rodriguez Jr. He is 25 years old. He pulls into the driveway, but notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't turn off the headlights. He doesn't kill the engine. He sits there, idling. Rodriguez steps out. He is now standing on his own property, or property he has access to. Under Texas law, he has a right to be here. But he is not alone. These are the Gamez brothers, Aleksei, age 19, and Alexander. In the police reports, you will see them referred to by their street names, Diablo and Evil. They approach Rodriguez. Watch this interaction closely. This is the minute that will determine the rest of Rodriguez's life. The defense will later tell the jury that this was a swarming, that Rodriguez was trapped by two meth-fueled predators.
If you threaten someone with a gun, our laws are that you can defend yourself, you can defend others with the same type of force. That's what this case is about.
But look at the hands. The digital feed is clear enough to see body mechanics. Are the brothers lunging? No. Are they raising weapons? No. They are standing there. There is a conversation happening. We cannot hear it, but we can see the body language. It is static. There is no physical struggle. No one pushes Rodriguez. No one touches him. And then the switch flips. At 2:50:45, without taking a step back, without firing a warning shot, Rodriguez raises a handgun. He fires. The reaction from the brothers is immediate panic. They don't fight back. They scatter. They turn to run. Aleksei Gamez is hit. He crumples to the grass. The threat is gone. He is face down in the dirt. But Rodriguez does not lower the weapon. He pivots. He tracks Alexander, who is fleeing. He fires again, and again, and again. In less than 10 seconds, Rodriguez discharges his weapon multiple times. He has just executed one brother and mortally wounded the other. He stands in the smoke of the gunpowder, illuminated by the IR lights of the camera. He looks calm. He looks collected. When the police arrive, Rodriguez will tell them he had no choice. He will say he was a sick man fighting for his life against monsters. And without that video, they might have believed him. But to truly understand the weight of that lie, and why a jury had to deliberate for 5 hours to send a man to prison for life, we have to step away from the camera for a moment. We have to understand the invisible war that was raging before the first shot was fired. The defense attorney, Gerald Smith, didn't build his case on the shooting itself. He built it on the atmosphere. He argued that the video was just the final scene in a horror movie that had been playing out for 3 hours. He called it the fog of war. This brings us to the Black Jesus narrative. This sounds like fiction, but it is the sworn testimony of multiple witnesses. Earlier that night, at a house on Park Street, the Gamez brothers were disintegrating. Witness Eric Milam described a scene of absolute chaos. The brothers were sweating, pacing, and shouting. They were armed with handguns, waving them recklessly in a room where children were present. But they weren't looking at the children. They were looking at the windows. They were hallucinating. They were convinced that a specific intruder, a phantom they called Black Jesus, was stalking them. Methamphetamine doesn't just make you high. It changes the way you process reality. It floods the amygdala, the fear center of the brain. To Aleksei and Alexander Gamez, Black Jesus was not a hallucination. He was a tangible, lethal threat who was coming to kill their family. This context is critical because it explains their behavior. They weren't just walking down the street. They were hunting. They moved from Park Street to Harrison Street, specifically to intercept this intruder. They were keyed up, fingers on triggers, adrenaline redlining. So when Rodriguez pulls into that driveway, the defense argues that he didn't just meet two neighbors. He met two men in the middle of a psychotic break. He met Diablo and Evil at the height of their paranoia. And then there is Rodriguez himself. The defense painted a very specific picture of him. They didn't describe him as a killer. They described him as a patient. Jose Daniel Rodriguez Jr. had a documented history of heart problems. He had undergone open heart surgery. He had a scar down the center of his chest. His lawyer stood in front of the jury and asked a simple question. How does a man with a stitched-up heart fight off two young, meth-fueled aggressors? He can't punch them. He can't wrestle them. If he gets into a physical altercation, his heart might literally give out. The defense argued that this physical vulnerability lowered the threshold for deadly force. Because he couldn't fight with his hands, he had to fight with his gun. He was, in their narrative, the ultimate vulnerable victim. It is a compelling story. A sick man, two drug-addicted predators, a dark night. If you close your eyes and listen to that story, you want to acquit him. You want to say it was self-defense. But then you open your eyes, and you look at the video again. The prosecution, led by Chris Botto, introduced a concept they called the video lie. This is the idea that a defendant can construct a perfect verbal defense, one that checks every legal box for justification, that is completely dismantled by the objective reality of pixels. Let's re-examine the footage with that heart patient defense in mind. We are looking at the timestamp 2:50:40. Rodriguez is out of the truck. If he is terrified, if his heart is pounding, if he believes he is about to die, why is he standing so still? Look at his feet. They are planted. He isn't backing away. He isn't shielding his chest. He creates what is known as an isosceles stance, a combat shooting stance. When he draws that weapon, there is no hesitation. There is no tremor. The law in Texas regarding self-defense is strict. It requires that the actor reasonably believes deadly force is immediately necessary. Keyword, immediately. The video destroys the concept of immediacy. The brothers are standing 4 feet away. There is a gap. Prosecutor Botto called it the gap of peace. In that gap, no violence is occurring. The violence only starts when Rodriguez decides to start it. And then there is the issue of overkill. This is where the forensics tell a darker story than even the video. Aleksei Gamez, Diablo, didn't just die. He was obliterated. The autopsy report shows 7 gunshot wounds. 7. In a panic scenario, you might fire 2 or 3 times. You shoot until the person falls. But 7 shots? That requires a sustained pull of the trigger. It requires tracking the body as it falls to the ground and continuing to fire into it. That is not the behavior of someone trying to escape. That is the behavior of someone trying to destroy. But the most damning piece of evidence, the detail that likely sealed Rodriguez's fate during those 5 hours of deliberation, was the second victim, Alexander Gamez. Watch the top left of the frame. Alexander is running. He is retreating. In self-defense law, once an aggressor turns their back and flees, the right to use deadly force evaporates. You cannot shoot a fleeing man in the back and call it self-defense. But Rodriguez tracks him. He pivots his torso. He lines up the shot. And he fires. Alexander is struck in the head. This is a high-difficulty shot on a moving target in low light. It suggests precision. It suggests that Rodriguez wasn't just spraying bullets in fear. He was aiming. He was hunting the hunters. The jury had to weigh the Black Jesus narrative against this video. They had to decide if the brothers' hallucinations mattered. And ultimately, they decided they didn't. It didn't matter if the brothers were high. It didn't matter if they thought they were fighting a ghost. It didn't matter if their street names were Diablo and Evil. In the eyes of the law, and in the eyes of the camera, they were two unarmed men standing in a driveway who were gunned down by a man who had options. Rodriguez had an option to reverse his truck. He had an option to stay inside the locked vehicle. He had an option to call 911. Instead, he chose the option that ended 2 lives. The trial takes place in the 188th District Court. The atmosphere is tense. On one side, you have the grieving family of the Gamez brothers. On the other, the family of Rodriguez, who still believe he is the victim. The key witness is Clara Mara Liscano, Aleksei's girlfriend. She was there. She saw it. She takes the stand, weeping. Her testimony is a double-edged sword. She confirms the Black Jesus story. She confirms the paranoia. They were scared, she says. They thought someone was coming for us. The defense thinks they have scored a point. But then Prosecutor Boto stands up. He doesn't ask her about Black Jesus. He asks her about the shooting. Did you see Aleksei attack the defendant? No. Did you see Alexander try to hit him? No. What did you see? I saw them fall. Boto's closing argument is brutal in its simplicity. He stands before the jury. He doesn't yell. He simply points to the screen. It is 2025, he tells them. Our whole lives are on video. You don't have to guess what happened. You don't have to wonder. You can see it. You are going to watch it over and over and over. He plays the video one last time. He pauses it right at the moment Rodriguez raises the gun. Look at that, Boto says. That is not fear. That is a choice. The jury deliberates for 5 hours. This might seem like a long time, but for a capital murder case, where the sentence is life without parole, it is incredibly fast. They didn't need days. They needed to watch the video a few more times to be sure. The verdict comes back. Guilty. Capital murder. Because the state did not seek the death penalty, Rodriguez is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He enters the Texas Department of Criminal Justice as a 27-year-old man. He will leave in a pine box. This case serves as a grim milestone in the modern justice system. It proves that the subjective defense, the "I felt scared," the "I thought he had a gun," is dying. It is being replaced by the objective reality of the digital censor. The Black Jesus narrative was a powerful story. It had drama, it had fear, it had madness. But it couldn't stand up to the cold, hard data of a 4K file. 2 brothers are dead because of a hallucination. A young man is in prison forever because of a lie. And the only winner in this entire tragedy was the camera. Because the camera is the only one that never blinked.